Hey art nerds! In my prior alcohol/Copic marker tutorials, we've talked about rendering the forms in space. We've talked about coloring skid tones. Today we're going to talk about doing hair, selecting colors for hair, and ways that you can render hair. I have lots of great in-depth tutorials for you guys to check out. Today's is just kind of a basic one, so I hope you guys are looking forward to it. Go ahead and grab your markers and let's get started. So if you'd like to color along, there are at least two things you're going to need. One, you're going to need about 9 little heads to color. If you want to color along using the Cara head worksheet here, you can gain access to that by joining me and the art nerd community over on Patreon at patreon.com/natosoup. My wonderful art nerds have access to this template and so many more. The other thing you may need is a chart of different color combinations that work. We're going to do 9 of these today, but there are loads more, and I really encourage you guys to go out, explore, experiment, and find color combinations for hair that you like. If you're looking for pastel, beautiful hair color combinations, I highly recommend you check out some of my adorable Monster Girl alcohol marker illustrations here on this channel. And let me know in the comments below if there's a color combination I have not covered that you guys would like to see. So let's go ahead and dive in. Not only will my art nerds have access to this template, but they'll also have access to a scan of my hair color charts if you guys would like to reference it more closely. I am recording this tutorial to help me prepare for my Coloring People with Copic class taught through the Nashville Plaza. If you'd like to learn alcohol markers in person and you live in the Nashville area, sign up for one of my classes. We are going to begin with what I think of as my Cara classic combination of E97, E08, E09, and E49. We're going to start with E97. And in some of my prior tutorials, we demonstrated a few different techniques for coloring hair. I'm going to go over one of my favorite techniques for coloring hair today. So we're going to mostly do a fill over here in the area that is away from the light, and that's something when you're coloring hair you definitely want to think about where your light source is hitting. So we'll say the light source is hitting maybe from this direction, and this area is sort of behind her face. And we're really using our brush to create sort of, I don't know what to call it, honestly. It's the way the light is hitting the hair. So it's a little bit uneven. There's definitely striations to it. This is one of my favorite methods for coloring hair, especially if I'm doing slightly more realistic art. I feel like it kind of better represents that. The style I demonstrated in one of my prior videos was really cartoony. That's a great method if you are looking for something a little easier, a little more basic, or if you're just getting started with alcohol markers. Now, this technique really relies heavily on the super brush nib in order to leave these sort of highlights and to create these sort of marks. And this is one of the reasons why I really give preference to alcohol markers that have a super brush style tip. All right, so our next layer is going to be E08. And with each layer, I'm covering less than the layer before. And I'm trying to leave lots of room for the highlight of the prior color, or rather for the prior color to shine through so you can see highlight. When rendering hair, it really helps to think of it as a 3D volumetric shape that has mass and form. So I usually draw hair really, really cartoony, as you see here with Cara. That makes these forms really easy to understand because they're very basic forms. They're just sort of rounded, oblongish masses, very easy. This is a great way to practice while you're sort of developing your skill set. A lot of what I'm going to tell you guys though would work for almost any style. That's the great thing about basics, is they're kind of universal. So with hair, I usually let each layer dry a little bit before I apply the next layer, and that way I get a nice sharper transition. There are going to be some areas though that you might want to blend back out. So we're going to take our prior color, E97. We're just going to soften the blended transition here and there. There may be areas that you don't like the highlight. This is a good opportunity to go in and kind of fix that. Copics and other alcohol markers are really great because in a way they're very flexible. They're very forgiving for artists who are still kind of figuring things out, because there's still a lot of room that you can kind of wiggle things back and forth, fix things. We could do another layer with E08, but I'm going to grab E09 and do my next layer. And if at any point you think, hey, that looks good, like just with 2 layers, you could stop with just 2 layers. It's all about what works for your art and experimenting until you find a look that you like. So think of what I'm doing just as your inspiration. It is not the end-all be-all, and it's not the only way to do it. So for this color tutorial, I'm going to basically render her hair the same in all 9 images. I know that's not particularly interesting, but it'll give you guys kind of a good overview of how the colors shade into each other. If you guys are interested, I would love to do a follow-up tutorial with different hair textures, so let me know in the comments below. Alright, so that was E09. Now we can go back in with E08 if we wish. Maybe this area here needs more E08. It's too light for an area that's kind of away from our light source. We might want to go back in again with E09 and darken it up. As I've mentioned in my other marker tutorials, each alcohol marker, each Copic marker has about 3 layers of tone that you can get out of it. So you can really build up colors. You don't need a huge marker collection to do beautiful marker art. And I'm moving fairly slow, but I'm really letting the brush do a lot of the work. This is much easier on my hand, and it would be much quicker than if I tried to do this with a bullet nib. Alright, so that was our final layer with E09. Then we're going to use E49, but I'm going to let this dry for a moment first. So, as I've mentioned in the earlier tutorials, if we were to add this while the alcohol is still solvent on the paper, still wet on the paper, you get a nice soft blended transition. If we allow it to dry, you're going to get a sharper transition with more contrast. So we have a really dark color here. This is going to add a lot of contrast to her hair. This is sort of our shadow color. So remember in the triad video, we basically had a light tone, a mid-tone, and a shadow tone. For this hair tutorial, you can do some of these as triads. I'm using most of these as quadrads, just because that's how I normally render hair. I usually have my highlight color, my 2 blending colors, and then my shadow color. And if you haven't seen the other tutorials in this series, don't worry, I have them linked in the description below. So her ear would maybe, if her hair is behind her ear, it'd be casting a shadow. And then I'm going to go back in with our E09 and blend that out. And my alcohol marker techniques are all about blend, 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 layer, 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 until I get the colors that I want. So if you are not a patient person, my marker tutorials are probably not the best pick for you. I'm not a patient person myself, but I find doing things with alcohol markers to be really relaxing. I love working with markers. I love the colors I can get. I find that a lot of what I do with watercolor is comparable to what I do with alcohol markers and vice versa. And I love how saturated and rich alcohol markers are. So I'm just kind of blending back with all the colors we selected. And then finally, I might go in one more time with E49, since we blended a lot of this back, just to add a little bit of extra shadow to it. And you're going to want to do that after it's had kind of a chance to dry. And you're going to want to save that for your darkest areas. Now, if you're looking for tutorials where we talk about building up contrast and developing contrast in lighting, you can check out some of my other tutorials here in the series. This video is not really going to cover that because I hope you guys watched those videos. Alright, so that is our first color quadrant where we use E97, we use E08, we used E09, and we used E49. We are moving on. We're going to do a blonde hair quadrant. I have a few different ones, but the blonde hair quadrant we're going to do next is YR quadruple 0, Y18, YR23, and E23, so it's kind of a warm honey blonde. For the rest of the video, I'm going to do the coloring in time-lapse and just announce our colors. If you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to ask me down in the comments below. I have no problem demonstrating either with a different hairstyle, a different hair color, or walking you through it in depth. Okay guys, that was a way to do blonde hair with YR quadruple 0, Y18, YR23, and E23. I want to caveat that I do not like the yellows that Copic has. I don't like them for blonde hair. What I would normally use is markers from other brands, but I'm trying to keep this particular set of tutorials focused on just one brand, just for ease of replication. So this is not necessarily my favorite. I feel like their yellows are more like sunshine or flower yellows rather than people yellows. I would love to see Copic introduce more colors that are great for hair and for skin, for like natural rendering, not just manga and illustration. Okay, so we're gonna do an ash blonde next. And we're going to use E000, E30, E43, and E71. But I want to swatch my colors for this one first. So this was our YR quadruple 0, our Y18, which is a little bit too bright, too brassy, our YR23, and our E23. Okay guys, so I went ahead and selected our E000, our E30, our E43, and our E71 so that we can do ash blonde hair next. Alright guys, so that was a way to render ash blonde hair using E000, E30, E43, and E71. Next, we're doing a dark brown hair with E23, E25, E89, and E79. Alright, that was a hair demonstration with E23, E25, E89, and E79. And I want you guys to notice how the color kind of changes when you layer it over other colors. It's influenced by that color, which is why sometimes colors that swatch and they seem like they'd be disparate and wouldn't work well together end up working together quite nicely. Next, we're going to do a different variation on blonde with YR00, Y19, YR23, and E99. that was a way to color sort of honey blonde hair with YR quadruple 0, Y19, YR12, and E99. Next, we're going to color red hair, or one of the ways to color red hair, using Y19, YR04, YR09, and E08. There are a lot of different colors for red hair, or what's classified as red hair, from a honey blonde, which is a strawberry blonde, which is blondish with some reddish tints to it, to sort of a gingery orange color, to dark red brown. We're just gonna do one today. Okay, that was a method to color orange or coppery colored hair using Y19, YR04, YR09, and E09. And again, I want to point out, just like with blondes, it's kind of difficult to color red hair using just Copics. You really have to be willing to go outside of your color family and add new colors in. You're not going to color realistic red hair if you're just sticking to oranges, so YRs. I recommend bringing in some golden yellows and bringing in some browns. And of course, there's a variety of ways to render red hair and a variety of tones that are considered red hair. This is just one of them. So for our last 3 hair samples, I wanted to use colorways that would work really well for non-Caucasian types of hair. You can use these types of hair, these methods of coloring, for anyone that you wish, but I do want to show some other alternatives. Again, this is not the only way to do it, and I really recommend you work from reference. And for some of these, the best way to really showcase why these colors work is to work with the right texture. So just keep that in mind while you're watching me work on these last 3 heads. We're going to begin with an example that is entirely within the warm grays category. We're going to use W00, W00, W4, W8, and W10. So this particular color set of W00, which is a very, very light warm gray, W4, W8, and W10. This one's a really interesting one because I use this to render darker hair pretty frequently, but it would actually be a really nice way to render certain types of gray hair. And really, like so many of the other methods we've shown you guys, or I've shown you guys, it all depends on what proportions you use. So if you were to go primarily W0 with a little bit of W4 and then your darkest part W9, you could have a really nice gray hair color. You can also use neutral grays and cool grays for really nice gray hair as well, just sort of depending on what your character looks like and what their needs are. So I really encourage you guys to experiment. This next color selection is one of my favorites for rendering darker hair, and I use it when I'm rendering Naomi's hair. So this is a great one for hair that has lots of body and lots of curl. It's not going to be quite as well represented here on Kara, but I think you guys will be able to get the gist. That was one way to color really dark brown to dark black hair using E71, E49, W9, and 110. Alright, and finally we have one more little head to color. So for that I am going to use E23, E89, E79, and E49. This is another one that can be pretty flexible depending on how much of each color you use and where. You can either get lighter hair with darker accents, or you can get darker hair with lighter accents. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the lighter hair with darker accents, and just keep in mind that if you add more of the darker colors and just leave the light as a highlight, as we did in this one, you'll be able to achieve a nice, really rich, dark brown hair color. Was our last hair that we're going to do today, and that was done with E23, E89, E79, and then E49. Alright, art nerds, so we talked about 9 different ways to color hair, or I guess I should say 9 different hair colors. There are so many more hair colors out in this world. I highly recommend you guys go and experiment and find your own favorites. Find your own favorite colors for it. Experiment outside of just Copic and work from reference. That's the best way to improve. You don't have to copy it directly, but take inspiration from it. I also highly recommend you guys swatch it out. If I could find the swatch sheet I made while I was working on this, I would show. Aha, here it is. I will show you guys. There are a lot of mistakes that I kind of figured out here on this page, and you guys can't really see it, but I'd even cut out and replaced one because I just really didn't like it and I wanted to redo it. So I really recommend you guys swatch, experiment, and leave room to make mistakes and learn. I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope it was useful, helpful, and informative for you guys. If you guys want to see me do a tutorial with different hair textures and different hairstyles, let me know down in the comments below. I'm happy to do that for you guys. If you like what I do and you want to help me do it, there are 3 ways you can do that. 1, you can click that subscribe button, hit the bell notification, and that way you never miss a video. It's free, it's easy, and it means you get loads more awesome content. 2, you can join me over on Patreon at patreon.com/natosoup, where you'll get the blank template for this, as well as loads more awesome art templates. I have all sorts of great stuff for art nerds, from comic class tutorials to marker class tutorials, and they get early access to all of my videos, or almost all of my videos, for just $2 a month. You can go join the community, and that would help me out tremendously. 3, you can join me on Friday evenings for my Power Hour art stream. Cheer me on, let me know how much you love my art, and ask for demonstrations. I am always asking you guys to tell me what you want to see, and I'm always looking for material during my Power Hour art stream. So you can join me here on Fridays at 8 p.m. CST. You can find information in the community tab about what's going on for that week's Power Hour. And if you subscribe and click the bell notification, it'll let you know when I'm about to start streaming. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys again in the near future. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope I'll see you guys again really soon. Bye, guys!